Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating framework developed by researcher Dean Kulik. It completely challenges how we think about space, time, and the very existence of your physical mass. We're talking about a space where thermodynamics, relativity, and discrete computation literally crash into each other to form a single, mind-bending architecture.
So let's dive right into this radical premise. You and I usually think of forgetting as, just a glitch in our biological hard drives. But what if the universe actually pays a physical, calculable price to erase information? Landauer's principle in physics already tells us that logically irreversible computation, like erasing a bit of data, requires a minimum amount of physical heat to be dissipated. Kulik's framework takes this a massive step further, applying it directly to the fabric of spacetime itself.
To navigate this, here's our roadmap for today. We're hitting 1. The cost of forgetting. 2. Holographic boundary collapse. 3. The binary wash. 4. Mass as the tether. 5. Pre-mass lattice omega. And finally, 6. Algorithmic exhaust. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the cost of forgetting. So, in relativity, your speed through spacetime is basically a split between moving through physical space and moving through time, what we call proper time. Well, Kulik's framework reveals something wild. Forgetting actually costs proper time. Erasure isn't free. The cost is strictly governed by a very specific formula, the square root of 1 minus beta squared, where beta is simply your fraction of the speed of light. Now, you'd probably think moving faster linearly reduces that cost, right? Actually, scratch that, it really doesn't. If you're sitting completely still in space, you're paying the absolute maximum forgetting cost of 1.0. Even if you're cruising at 50% of the speed of light, you are still paying a hefty 0.86. Ordinary, slow reality, like us sitting here right now, exist on what you can think of as an expensive plateau. Forgetting doesn't even become half price until you hit 86% of light speed. But a photon traveling at 99.99% light speed, it takes the direct chord, experiencing basically no intermediate states, and costs almost nothing to forget.
Moving right along to Section 2, holographic boundary collapse.
How exactly does the universe record all this? Well, Kulik uses what's called the finite difference boundary collapse framework. Think of it like the analog accumulation of the classic Newton forward difference series in calculus. As your proper time accumulates, the continuous input stream gets wrapped and folded. Imagine a massive sheet of paper being repeatedly folded into a really tight, complex origami shape. During this fold, the interior configurations mathematically collapse, and all that crucial reconstructive history gets pushed entirely to the outer edge, the holographic boundary edge, or EN. Which brings us to Section 3, the binary wash. So what happens to the inside of that origami shape? Well, this is basically the discrete computational version of the holographic principle. The interior of our data pyramid becomes mathematically degenerate. It completely washes away into a fungible clone bulk of redundant binary noise. It's kind of like a massive hard drive filled entirely with trillions of identical, totally useless text files. The inside is literally just a wash. But the boundary edge survives. It acts as this highly structured, information-bearing perimeter that perfectly preserves the accumulated history of the local system. Now let's tie this to reality in Section 4. Mass as the tether. If the inside of everything is just this washing river of binary redundancy, why don't you and I just wash away with it? Well, here is the massive paradigm shift of this whole framework. Mass is not simply physical weight. Instead, mass is derived entirely as that holographic boundary edge, ENG. It acts as a literal tether. It preserves your localized continuation against a sweeping flow of that interior binary wash. A massive particle is basically just a computational state that flat out refuses to collapse. Your mass is the obstruction preventing your total erasure. Let's dig into the math of that tether in Section 5, pre-mass lattice omega. 1836. If you study physics, you'll immediately recognize this as the standard proton-to-electron mass ratio. It's honestly one of the great mysteries of the Standard Model. Why on earth is a proton exactly 1,836 times more massive than an electron? Traditionally, it's just treated as a random parameter. But in Kulik's framework, it's an exact, mathematically derived geometric coordinate. In fact, the framework dictates that 1836 is not calculated. It is read. It's a specific intersection address stabilized by the mass tether. and it exists on a geometric transformation space known as the pre-mass lattice omega. Specifically, it's located exactly at distances 20/7 and 22/7, which elegantly enough sum to 6. So the proton isn't some separate random particle. It is the exact same fundamental tether as the electron, just tied more tightly at this exact intersection to survive the computational wash. This all comes together in our final segment, Section 6, Algorithmic Exhaust. Just imagine a perfectly reversible universe with infinite precision. In that universe, there's absolutely no forgetting. But because it doesn't forget, it also can't have sequential progression. Everything, past and future, just exists all at once as a single co-present geometric object. No way we live in that universe, right? Our universe has a precision floor. When the cosmic instrument hits that boundary, it is forcefully required to truncate its state. It must erase. And as we learned right at the start, erasure dissipates heat. This violent act of forgetting branches that single geometric object into the sequential steps we experience. Which leads us to this incredibly profound conclusion. There is no computation without erasure, no sequence without forgetting, and no time without thermodynamic heat. Floating point precision loss, physical heat, and the literal arrow of time itself are all the exact same phenomenon. The forward march of time we experience and the mass that anchors us into existence are ultimately just the structured thermodynamic exhaust of a universe that is continually forced to forget its own exactness. Which leaves us with one final, deeply provocative question to ponder long after this explainer ends. If your physical existence is just the surviving exhaust of a cosmic algorithm, and time is just the heat of the universe forgetting, what exactly is the universe trying to compute? Thanks for tuning in, and keep questioning the nature of reality.